Last time we built this flower bed. This time it's the fun part. We're laying track.
This video is brought to you with support from my patrons on Patreon. These videos would not be possible without them, and if you'd like to join the Patreon community, you can follow the link in the description below and join for as little as $1 a month. Before we begin track work, I did end up deciding to pour another 2 bags or 4 cubic feet of garden soil into the bed and tamp it down. If you missed how I built this bed, check out the video right up here as well as the end of the video. Now it's time to lay the track. The track I'm using is a mix of LGB track and old Aristocraft track that I picked up used. There are loads of eBay listings for used G-gauge brass track, and you can buy it in packs essentially, and it's a really great way to stay on budget if you're building a garden railroad. You do want to use brass track because of its ability to hold up in the elements. Most brass track manufacturers use weather-resistant plastic for their ties on the track as well. I lay out my track where I want to position it, and I then use my garden knife to trace a path around the inside and outside edge of the track so I'll know where to dig my trench for the roadbed. I'm gonna go for a depth of about 2.5 to 3 inches on the trench with at least 2 inches of space off of each edge from where I drew the trench so that we have a little extra at the edge of the track. Now the trench does not have to be an entirely uniform depth, just make sure it has at least 2 inches of depth beneath track level and about an inch at the edges. One of the big problems you can run into with garden railroads is weeds. Not only are they not pleasing to the eye, but if they grow up into the roadbed, they can potentially cause shifting and create seemingly random issues with your electrical conductivity and your track. This is why I'm going to put weed block fabric in the base of the trench for the roadbed. This will keep the weeds out. Now, we know when it comes to weeds that there's a will, there's a way, but this will certainly help control them a lot. I cut weed fabric strips about a foot wide and then bring in the roadbed material. Now I did a lot of looking for the right rock for the roadbed. I have looked at everything from decomposed granite to chicken grit, 2 things I've seen used a lot in other garden railways. Finally, I settled on a fairly cheap solution: driveway gravel. Driveway gravel is pretty ubiquitous and is rough enough to where once it settles, rain and the elements are not going to move it. Do not use something like pea gravel or river rock. I know from experience that these rocks will shift and move over time and will cause issues. To lay the weed block, I use handfuls of the rock to hold it in place as I go around, and once all of that weed fabric is in place, I begin dumping the driveway gravel into the trench. I smooth it and level it as much as possible and then go for another test fit of the track. I ended up having some very uneven spots, so I went back to my local mulch yard and got another bucket of driveway gravel. Now, my mulch yard doesn't typically sell by the bucket, but I found that if you offer them some cash and bring your own shovel, they're most likely not going to say no. I test fit the track again, and it fits a lot better.
Alright, we've stepped back inside just for a minute because I want to talk about what we're going to do about connecting the track up. Now, every model railroad has to take into consideration expansion and contraction throughout the year with the changing of the seasons, and that depends on how well climate controlled your environment is that your railroad is and things like that. So railroads kind of change their shape just slightly with the changing of the seasons and temperatures. Now with garden railroads, that's kind of on steroids because not only do you have to worry about the changing of the seasons and the changing of temperatures, but you also have to worry about things like water runoff and all sorts of other weather and wind and things like that, and your track shifting. So the track connections can be a little bit more vulnerable than they can on indoor model railroads. Now, these are 2 pieces of LGB's curved track, the 4-foot radii. And what we have here is, you can see that they come with these just regular old rail joiners and they connect just like that. Now, if you're running something indoors, that's more than likely going to be totally fine. But you can also see that it's not it's not the most secure. So if it's outdoors and being submitted to the elements, that you could potentially have issues. So what's the solution for outdoors? Well, it's rail clips, and these particular ones I'm going to be using are from Trainly. You can see them right there, and what they basically are is you slip the rail right in there and you tighten down the screws right here, and it'll clamp the rail in place. And what it'll do there is basically just hold really tight, keep the electrical conductivity solid, and that's going to keep your track together.
To attach the Trainly rail clips, you first need to remove the originals. These clips are secured to the plastic tie, so you need to pop the tie off at the clip, and then you can use a set of pliers to pull the clip free. Next, you'll need to put the small flathead screws in the clips. Each clip requires 2 screws. Don't tighten them all the way down. You'll then slide the clip on the rail and tighten the corresponding screw. Once you have a clip on each rail, you can slide the track that you want to connect to it into the clips. Now obviously make sure on the second piece that you have removed those original track clips as well. Then you just tighten down the screws.
You can see, I'll give it a good pull. Oh, yeah, they're not coming apart. So that is, you can see they're basically just one piece now. So those are what I am using. Now the thing is, these aren't the cheapest things in the world, but I have a small model railroad, so it wasn't too terribly expensive to get all of these in place. I have about, I think 40 of them that I'm going to use. I don't think I'm going to use all 40. I bought extras, but you can see that it's definitely worth it. Like that thing ain't going anywhere.
So now for the fun part of building a garden railroad, except for maybe on my knees. Installing the track. I set to work installing all of the track clips and connecting the track. Next, I connected the track power connector that came with the starter set. The track clips actually do come with a way to connect power, but for this small garden railroad, this way is going to work fine. Now, with the track laid and leveled, I can dump additional driveway gravel on the track. This part is very similar to building most other railroads, except, heavier. I then take a broom and spread the gravel out, and this is just like brushing your tracks once you ballasted them on a smaller indoor model railroad. I then smooth out the excess dirt from digging the trench. Now, what golden spike ceremony would be complete without a test run? Now, after your test run, in order to get the gravel to start settling and to get the rails a little bit cleaner, make sure to hose off all of your track. So we built our base and we've laid our track. We've tackled the railroad portion of Garden Railroad. Next time, we're gonna tackle the garden portion. Thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, I'm Jimmy from the DIY and Digital. Stay safe, be kind, and happy railroading.